All right, guys. With the power suit and the gun done, we only have two more pieces left to build for this Kaiju 8 cosplay. We have the wig, and then I am going to be making a tearaway formal jacket later on. But this week we're going to work on the wig. I decided that I needed to make a helmet wig for this. Mina has a pretty high, heavy ponytail, and having a ponytail wig is something that I feel like would be necessary in order to accomplish the hairstyle that she sports in this anime. I have only made a ponytail once before, and I did it literally to practice to get ready for this wig. I had an old ponytail wig in my costume box, and so I figured I could turn it into a helmet wig just to practice the techniques that I wanted to use for this. So this is literally my second helmet wig. And there are things that I have learned the second time through that hopefully I can implement for whenever I decide to make another one. But I am generally pretty pleased with how this turned out. There are a few things that I'm not entirely pleased with, but it kind of comes with the territory of not having a whole lot of experience doing this kind of thing before. But I am happy to bring you along as we make this Kaiju 8 Mina Ashiro wig. I started this project with an epic cosplay wig, and my wig stump has already gotten lines for my personal facial features already kind of drawn out onto it, so you can see the eyebrows and the hairline here underneath the wig. It's a little bit difficult to see because I did write it with black Sharpie on a masking tape form, but essentially what I did previously was I coated my head in masking tape, cut it off, stuffed it onto my wig stand, and then used that as a template for making this. Here I am just crimping. Basically, most cosplayers will crimp their wigs these days. It makes a more realistic texture on the kind of plasticky looking fibers that you find on the wigs straight out of the package. I go up and down, changing my direction over and over again. You can see I pass up and down, changing angles and stuff over and over again, so that you don't get that uniform kind of crimpy texture on the strand of the hair that makes it look visibly crimped. And then once I am done with that, I removed a bunch of wefts from the wig, because this time we're going to make a helmet wig. This is only my second helmet wig, but harvesting the wefts is important because you're going to be using them to kind of create that ponytail look later on. And when I do this, I will put a small chunk of hair down on the paper and then put glue on both the front and back sides of the weft, just to make sure that it's all the way sealed into the glue and that we don't have hair falling out of it later when we go to apply it to the wig. So here I am doing yet another little weft here, doing one side, flipping it over, and then doing the back side to just seal all of the hair pieces in. I am using Uhu glue. I'm not entirely sure I like this glue. It is recommended a lot, but I'm not entirely sure I like it. It does show up a little bit shinier on the fibers of the hair than I would like, but I am using it again here to kind of flatten out all of the hair that is remaining on the wig. We do this as we make helmet wigs because you have to have a base that's kind of stiffer to work with, and physics-wise, the reason why that this helmet wigs are made in the first place is because if you have a soft, squishy wig base, like most wig meshes are, it doesn't have the support structure like your skeleton or skull would in order to hold up a ponytail, and so the ponytails that we get for animes will end up being floppy, right? They'll sag under the weight of the hair because they are only really held together by a mesh base. So by creating kind of a solid base of the wig through making these like glued shells, and then, as you can see here, putting on the wire, we're creating something a little bit more structured that is capable of holding these large cartoony anime themed ponytails without kind of slumping over because the soft texture of the mesh of the wig base to begin with. So what I do, I like to use wire. Some people will 3D print bases. Other people will use like bottle lid, like the mouth to like a soda bottle or something, to create their base with. I just prefer the wire method. Why I do that is because I don't make like a solid shell to my helmet. I do like having the adjustable nature of the wire inside of my helmet. So once I pull it off, I can then kind of like form the wire closer to the shape of my head than what my wig form is already set up for. So I use this wire to kind of make it a little bit more adjustable once I've got it on my head. I am not perfect at this, and my wig form, while it is a shape of my head, isn't perfect either. I probably need to adjust it a little bit, but here we are getting the wire put into place so that once I have finished this wig, I can then obviously squish the wire closer to my head dimensions. Now I do multiple loops of wire. Obviously it will give it more structure around the head, and it will be able to hold more. I don't know. This is what I felt comfortable with, and a shape that I've kind of seen other cosplayers use. And then I just use PVC in order to create a removable aspect to the wig. I don't really plan on taking the wig ponytail on and off the wig, but it is a possibility in the event that I need to be able to. So I have like a short length of PVC and then kind of like a little cap, PVC cap to put on there. After that, we put on, this is quilt batting, or it's like a felted quilt batting. I'm not entirely sure what it is. I got it for free from a friend, but I use it to smooth the texture of the hair. If we're going to put down nice smooth wefts in order to make a ponytail, we kind of need something smooth to start with. The glued down hair from the actual wig is lumpy, and if you are trying to lay down wefts on top of something lumpy, you're going to get a lumpy looking ponytail. So you put a layer of, some people do like the actual like polyfill batting. This is what I have on hand, and it works really well for me. So I put 2 layers on just to make sure that I have a really nice smooth base to work with. And it's just kind of hot glued into place. It does also add to the support structure because we are layering it with hot glue. But yeah, so then once you've covered the entire area that is going to be getting hair wefts attached to it, You can then begin painting the base. Now this is really important because, especially with wigs that are quite dark or strongly colored, it is very important to color your base. I just am painting some acrylic paints onto the base because once you start layering your hair fibers over the top of the base, you don't want to see any of this like batting showing through. Some people will airbrush theirs, other people will just purchase colored felt to begin with. This works fine. I already had the paint and I already had the batting, so this is where I went with mine. Then that way, if you have any like hairs that separate or show through to the base underneath, it's not going to be as obvious. I know when I go back and look at mine, I thought I was doing really thorough, putting all of my hairs down and covering everything up, only to realize I was like, hey, wait a minute, there's kind of a gap here, but nobody will know because underneath is this base of black paint that blends nicely with the hairs that have been added back onto the helmet wig. Now we are finally to the portion where we can glue the hair back onto the wig. I do two different types of gluing for the adding the wefts into the ponytail shape. The first section I do is usually towards the top and the front into the bang line. And what I do is as you see here, I've got it clipped open, and I will layer little small wefts in between the rows of hair that are left on the wig. If you saw earlier, I leave the bangs untouched because I don't want to have to do like a glue line on the front of my bangs. Like, messing with that area just does not, I don't think I have the skill for that yet. It's not something I'm brave enough to do. So I will open up the hair, as you can see here, into different layers where the wefts have been sewn onto the original like wig cap, and I will put the wefts that I'm going to be gluing on in between those layers of wefts that remain on the wig. Then that way, when the hair lays back down after being clipped up, you won't see the glue line as much. So once you lay down the hair, you can see here, I'm going to lay it down back over the top of what I have glued. And once I've done that, you cannot see that glue line as well. It's kind of naturally woven into the tracts of the bangs left behind. And then I just glue it the rest of the length down onto the batting that I have on there and up into the ponytail. And I'll do that all the way around before I'll cut the like extra length off onto there. So that's the one way that I glue on. The other way, once I get to the bottom side of the ponytail, I actually start at the ponytail itself and then take the loose ends of the wefts down towards the bottom, like the back, like the nape of the neck, the back of the neckline, so that I have like those free ends of hair that can then be cut into kind of like a hairline at the base of the neck. So you can see here down at the bottom, I haven't trimmed the bottom of the hairline, but I left the hairline free and open so that when I trim it, it just looks like kind of the natural blend of the hair from the ponytail down to the base of the neckline. Then I can go in and kind of cut the hair to follow the hairline that I've traced onto my wig stand. I drew, as I showed earlier, I drew on there the hairline my personal hairline, so that I know how long I need to make this wig's hairline so that it covers up any hair that I might have sticking out. So then I just kind of follow that line along down the edge of the wig, Um, So, one thing that I did have trouble with was covering up a little bit of this glue line. I didn't want any of that showing through, so I decided to add a couple of extra wefts onto the top, into the bang line, just to give myself a little bit more coverage of the glue line that I had in order to put the hair on. The last thing that was really concerning for me is you can kind of see this minor demarcation between where the glue was holding the end of the wefts together. So a couple of things that I did in order to kind of like smooth out that like gradient was, first off, I took some black eyeshadow and kind of powdered the edge of that line. And then I went in a little bit with my airbrush to airbrush that line just a little bit more so that you can't see the like shiny demarcation of the Uhu glue on the hair versus the wefts that are just laid down with hairspray. And this was important to me. I don't want it to look like I've got glue holding this together. I do want it to kind of look a little bit more natural, so that subtle demarcation of where the glue ended into the wefts of the hair was driving me insane. So putting both of these things on really helped to just kind of brush that line away so that it is not as noticeable. If you look really close, you can still see it. That's something that does bother me, but part of that is because the hair texture will change because it got wet and then it got glued wet. So it does kind of tend to clump together a little bit, and that's not great, but whatever. It's the best I can do. The last part of this for me was making the actual ponytail. So I took the cap of the PVC piece and essentially just like cinnamon rolled these wefts. When I purchased the original wig, I purchased extra wefts to go with it. So then I'm just kind of wrapping these extra lengths of wefts around the outside of the PVC cap so that it is round like it would be if you had actual hair in a ponytail. And one of the last things I did was style the bangs. Now that I have the whole ponytail part all together and I'm not in danger of actually destroying any style I put on the bangs, I went ahead and teased it to give it a little bit more body. And then we could steam it and shape it into the shape that we are looking for this character. Once you tease it, you can then kind of like brush the top of it to kind of smooth it out. But the teasing underneath is actually going to give it a little bit of body. As something that I'm not super familiar with, I haven't done a whole lot of teasing up my own hair growing up, and I have only been styling wigs for about 1.5 years now. So I am still kind of learning how to do the whole teasing process. I feel like it could be a little bit smoother at the end than what I got, but it is still generally the basic shape that she has in her hair. And then we'll steam some heat into the fibers of the hair. The heat actually helps to make the plastic of the actual fibers a little bit more malleable, and then you'll pin it into the shape that you want, holding the little ends into like spikes or curls or whatever you need to do. And then once it cools, I don't know if you've ever like melted plastic before. It's malleable and soft when it's hot, and then once it cools down, it returns to kind of that like harder form that it was to begin with. So you are cooling it essentially into the shape that you are looking to have in the hair. And then you just kind of pin it to hold it there while it's cooling into that shape. The last thing that we need to do for this is add in her little hair pieces. Mina has some cool little triangle hair pieces, and I just wanted to make them magnetable. So we got some magnets and we are putting them in the hair. She's got kind of a generic hair situation in the first place, so assuming like later on in the future I have the need for another black wig, ponytail wig, I can just not put the hair pieces in because they are magnetic. And then I styled these like side bangs to go over the top of the magnetic attachment pieces. I held off on styling these till last because I needed the glue to dry on the magnets that are hidden underneath them. So again here, we're just kind of cutting and styling these into place, and that is it. That is the last part of this, and we are done with Mina's wig.